This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz. Very excited to speak with Michael Chiklis about The Senior. How are you, Michael?
Great, man. How are you?
Good. How aware were you of Mike Flint's story before this film?
Oh, not at all. I vaguely remembered when I was reading the book, I was like, oh, yeah, I remember hearing something about this because it was a big story on ESPN. And I'm an avid watcher of all things sports. So I kind of had this, oh, yeah, that's right. There was an older guy who went back and played college football. This is his story, but not really. I didn't know the story. And this was a bolt out of the blue. The script came to me, as a straight offer, which, rarely happens in my career. It's usually I have to fight for every inch. So this was a lovely, incredible surprise and gift. And, as actors, we're always looking for an incredible story, first and foremost. And it's all about what's on the page. And then once you read it and, if you respond to something on the page, then it's about who's doing it. And in this case, it's, Rod Lurie, Academy Award nominated, amazing director with a great body of work, and Mark Ciardi, who is known for sports films. That's what his wheelhouse is. He's an ex-MLB pitcher, So this was just like manna from heaven. It was just incredible.
I would say I'm definitely not an avid sports watcher. I feel like I watch, Michael Chiklis stuff, but I don't, sports is not really my thing quite as much. Do you see this as purely a sports movie, or there really is a human element to it that with the
Oh,
sports
it's
that
yeah,
what is
it's a
happening in
lot
the show?
more than this. Yeah, sports is the world, but in which it takes place, but it's far more than that. That it's really a redemption tale. This is about second chances and about someone trying to overcome, the violence of his youth and, and trying to redeem himself, not just to himself, but mainly, to his family and his loved ones and, and trying to give back, so it's a beautiful story and I'm proud to be a part of it. A great group of people coming together, a great cast, a great crew. I loved, it was a little daunting, frankly, because I've done a number of biopics before, but never one where the actual subject of the film was sitting right there every day of shooting. I mean, he was there with his wife, Eileen, and they're lovely, wonderful people, but at first it was quite daunting. But then it was okay because ultimately they're really, they're unobtrusive and just they were just thrilled to to be there, but they didn't, impose themselves on the situation at all.
What would you say are the key differences between the real Mike and the character that you play?
Well, that's a great question.
If there are any, maybe not.
Well, I mean, obviously there are minor differences, but we tried to really go right for him and his story. And I think, there might have been some things that key moments that we embellished a little bit for the purposes of a movie. And not really. I mean, it's pretty, I think one of the things that drew me to the movie and really what I love about it is, this guy becomes the oldest college football player in the history of college football. And I know you're not a sports fan, but I was the captain of my football team in high school. So this was the first time I put on a football uniform in 40 years. And I was 59 when I made the movie. So I was the same age as Michael was when he went back and did this. And my first question to him was, Mike, I got to ask you, are you crazy? Because, at my age, the idea of putting on pads and smashing into young men was not, on my bingo card. And at first, I was so fired up because if you've ever played competitive sports, that competitor in you never really dies, right? And I put the pads on and I was so stoked. And then I got out in the field and I saw these, 24 and 25-year-old, young athletes right out of college who played college ball running around. And I thought, oh my God, I seriously questioned my intelligence. I was like, what have I done? I've made a giant mistake here. And especially the first time I had to smash into this kid named Willie Bell. Oh my God. You just don't bounce like you did when you were. Oh, wait a minute. I see something great in the background of your shot. I just noticed.
We'll get to that. Don't worry. No, no, no. That'll be a big
Sorry, I
topic of our
couldn't
conversation.
couldn't help but notice. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, this film, I mean, again, it is, as you say, a very positive, inspiring tale, but it does deal a lot with the fact that he had a very fractured relationship with his son, which was not helped by the fact that he was doing something which, as you said, was not necessarily good for his health.
If there was anything that was embellished in the film, it's that because Mike happens to be very tight with his son. He did have a very fraught relationship with his father.
Mm.
And that's where the violence sprung from in his life. Um, and that's where the writers took a little bit of license in making a little bit more dramatic conflict between his son and he. But I think that was such a big part of his youth and something that he really focused on overcoming as a parent, that he did that consciously from when his son was very young. So that if there's a big difference between the movie and Mike as a person, it would be that.
Clarification. Well, as somebody who, years ago would chase after bad guys all the time, and, this show behind me, what advice would you give to actors taking on very physical roles, at this stage of their lives, to prepare for it?
Get a great stuntman. Don't do what I did, which is to, like in The Shield, I think I did honestly all but two shots, stunt wise in the 7 years. On this one, I let the stuntman do a handful of shots, the ones where I really got cleaned out, because I'm wearing a helmet and pads. And, if some of these shots, I'm getting cleaned out from the side and you can't really see whether it's me or not. So I didn't see the wisdom in allowing me at 59 years old to get run over by a 24-year-old. And I was, live and learn. I learned a little. It was great because I saw that happen in front of me and I was like, oh, thank God I didn't do that. But I did do 90% of the football and all of the training and stuff in this movie. The running upstairs and hitting the sleds and push-ups, sit-ups, all that stuff. That's all me. And a lot of the football, 90% of it, so stay hydrated, stretch a lot, have a great trainer, and know enough when it's time to do the shot and when it's time to defer to the stunt person.
Like that.
Yeah.
Well, now I have these DVDs behind me, but back in, 2001 and that whole run, I was in high school. I did not have cable at home. My parents didn't want me to watch a lot of TV, which obviously worked out well because now, I'm a film and TV critic. But I had a classmate in one of my math classes who had FX at home. So she would bring me, like, she would tape it on her VCR and bring me in tapes, to school that I would go home and then watch. And it's crazy just thinking now with how, you can access anything on streaming. And then it was much more of a challenge to be able to watch the show. And sure, it was only, 13 episodes, a little less later on, but it's still, it's just crazy thinking about how different TV was then. And I'm wondering from you, if you think this was so like, boundary pushing and edgy at the time, do you think it's still like that? Or has TV gotten a lot more violent and darker to the point where this wouldn't really shock as much anymore?
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know about shock. I definitely think it still holds up. I hadn't looked at it in a long time, because I don't really look at the things that I've done except for once. But by happenstance, there was an episode on and I looked at it and I felt kind of good about how well it held up from a storytelling standpoint and from a writing standpoint. So I think it would hold up really, really well. I mean, particularly with everything that we're seeing right now. in the world. I think the question of what are we willing to accept from law enforcement in post 9/11 America is still a very resonant thematic question to be asking. So yeah, I think it would hold up really well. I recently heard Vince Gilligan when he was accepting an award at the WGA say something that I have to say I applauded, because he said as much as he loved working on Breaking Bad and as much as I loved working on The Shield, I think we went through this period of a real deep dive into the nature of the anti-hero. And I loved it, and it was an extremely satisfying artistic endeavor, and no regrets whatsoever. But I do think it would be a good idea for us, just as a culture, to focus on some truly heroic types and people who lend something to the culture in that way, because I think that the pendulum swings, and I think the landscape of television and film has gotten so dark that I think we need some light, and I think we need some people and stories about people like Mike Flint in this story on I think it's easy for people sometimes to dismiss something that's heroic and kind and comes from a loving, good place. But I think if it's made well, it'll touch that piece, that part of your humanity that we've been kind of longing for, this type of story, and sort of wondering if it exists in us. I think that people have gotten very sort of cynical, and understandably, but I think that it's an important thing. I think it's important that we look, man, I got into this a long time ago because I'm a storyteller, and I love what films and theater and all of that did to me and for me as a kid growing up, right? So if I can entertain you and at the same time make you think, and especially make you feel something, that's the most important thing in my life and in my work. I don't want you to just watch something sort of benignly, you know what I mean, with this sort of detachment from it and sort of go, oh, okay. You know what I mean? It's so much more impactful if the work makes you, moves you, and in some cases profoundly. And I think that The Shield was something that did that. And I think that The Senior, you kind of have to be made of wood if you watch that last act of that film and feel nothing. You might want to ask a couple of questions of yourself at that point. What's wonderful to me about it is innately human, and it is moving, and it does touch things that in our humanity that are important to all of us. I think whether you've been into sports or not, we've all made mistakes. And we all want to feel like we can have a second chance and to be redeemed for something that we did and we got wrong when we were younger. I think that's universal, right? And, I don't care if you're a football player or not, that's definitely hits home in this movie.
Well, I did enjoy, following your career after The Shield, and I like to remember all the little one-season shows that could have taken really great that most people have forgotten. I enjoyed Vegas, but speaking to what you're talking about, heroic, just something a little bit more positive. No Ordinary Family, I feel like, was just this. It was I can't say I remember it all that well. I just remember it was something. It was light. It was the opposite of The Shield in so many ways. But
Right.
it was just. It's also it's good for all ages, which is nice too.
I think my career's gone that way purposefully. I think that when I do one thing, I tend to like to go the other way and just mix it up and not get stagnate in one area. You know what I mean? So No Ordinary Family really appealed to me. I did it primarily for my children, And that was one that got away because it was a really good show. And, there are different reasons why it didn't survive, but it was really well reviewed and it had a big audience. But there's political things and stuff behind the scenes that happen with shows that people aren't really aware of. And it's just you know, man, show business, it's a tough business. And, look what's happening now in the business. I mean, there's been a retracement of over 50% now. We used to be, my friend John Landgraf, who's one of the great, you know, curators of television in the history of the game, the president of FX, and this is a highly intelligent man and incredible, prescient. He said to me, I don't know, a decade ago, he said, this is unsustainable, this peak television, as he called it at the time. We're doing 600 shows, it's impossible. We can't, but it's going to take a catalyst to stop it. Maybe something like a pandemic and maybe two strikes. Well, we've had the catalyst and now the retracement is in full force. And I think that the business is going through its roilings right now and trying to find itself, trying to, understand what it is and how to turn a profit. And, there was this bifurcation. When I was growing up, there were three network television networks. And, we had sort of collective experiences, whether it was the moon shot or the stuff that was happening in Vietnam and the resignation of Nixon, the things that we all saw. We all saw it. The whole country saw it. Who killed JR? Everybody knew, like everybody saw these things. And over the course of the last 20 years, there's been this sort of splintering into niches, all right? And for a while that was successful, and just this giant bifurcation of the business. And now there's this consolidation. And I mean, there's trade-offs, there's good and bad in both of that. And I think that, like water, it'll search equilibrium, and the business will find its way again. We'll see how that works out. But you just have to persevere and continue to tell great stories. And that's what I believe in. That it's like the cream, it rises. The great stories find a way. And this is one of them.
Well, what's giving you hope for the future of television or film? What have you seen recently that's really, really sticking with you?
Hey, I've seen some really great stuff this year. I mean, my buddy Walton Goggins was in White Lotus, and he was incredible in it, and everybody in the cast was. The studio is fantastic. But, and I've seen some off the radar stuff like My Brilliant Friend, and, is quite lovely. And now, because of watching White Lotus, I now looked back at, with my wife and I have been watching The Gilded Age. So there's a lot of great television being made. Man, geez, there's a lot of great stuff out there that we've enjoyed. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting stuff. I'm sure I am. I know I am. The harrowing show in England that was made about the school, the killing. What's that?
Lessons?
Adolescence. Oh my God. Oh, that was some of the best television I've seen in years. That was extraordinary. Wow. Right. So there's just a lot of great work, and I love the sort of, just in what I just described to you. That's something I've always believed in. The business tends to try to put viewers and players in a box, right? Oh, she does this, he does that, And I look at it like, well, I'm the same as an artist as I am as a viewer. Like, I don't just watch drama. You know what I mean? I don't just listen to rock and roll. I love, If I'm going to a club, I want to hear house music. If I'm going to I love the symphony. We have great diversity in our own tastes, right? And I have an incredibly eclectic film collection, music collection, and it really depends on, vibe, mood. Where are you? What do I want to, it's like, I don't want to just eat cheeseburgers. I want to eat, there's a beautiful menu in the world, so let's, a little of this, a little of that, you
Well,
know?
is is there something from your, filmography, some project that you never get asked about in an interview that you're very proud of that you wish more people brought up?
Huh. Well, the thing that sprung to mind is the Three Stooges movie, for example. I love that little movie. I think it was really well produced, really well made. It's surprising in its storytelling. Proud of the work in it. And, because it never really got released after because of, again, behind the scenes political stuff. It's little known and little seen, and it's really worthy of viewership. Also, I did a show that I didn't get to finish. Like, people don't realize there's the ones that are triumphs if you're lucky, and I've been very lucky. I've had a number of really, great successes in my career. I'm very fortunate. And then there's ones that were like successful monetarily, but not very successful from a critical standpoint. And then there's ones that got away, like No Ordinary Family, Vegas, Coyote is
What's
one
to
I
say?
did.
Yeah, Coyote.
The first two episodes of Coyote, I'll put against anything out there. I mean, really, Michelle McLaren did a phenomenal job directing that show. We were down there in Tijuana shooting that show and in the Sonoran Desert. And I was very proud of that. And between the pandemic and then the selling of Paramount, the show was canceled before it ever got aired. It just was over. And we knew it before they just dropped us 6 out of 10 episodes. We never got to finish the first season. So this, that song by Sinatra, That's Life, is my theme song. Listen to the lyrics of that song and think of every actor you've ever known. And that's there it is in a song.
Well, The Senior is coming out in theaters, which is exciting. What's next after that for you?
Well, there's some things. I'm very superstitious, so I have some things brewing that are extremely exciting. Two projects in particular. One that I'm hoping is next, that we're working on in earnest, and I am beyond beside myself about the potential of it and the people that I'm working with toward it. Sorry to be such a tease, but there it is. But you'll love it, especially if you love The Shield. You will enjoy this in a big way. A drama, hard, very exciting, and especially the minds behind it. Wow. I wish I could say more. I can't. But I got some great stuff coming up. But I'm really, first and foremost, I'm excited about The Senior because let me tell you something. It is a rare thing to be number one on the call sheet for any movie. And it's even rarer for movies to get into the movie theater now. That's a big change that we've witnessed over the last 20 years, particularly the last 10 years. Movies are, for Marvel tentpole movies or horror movies, and maybe the occasional comedy. But to be in a small drama that's going into 2,000 screens, that's downright thrilling. And it also speaks to the quality of the picture. The movie's a really well-made movie, and it's good for all audiences, and it's something that has a giant heart and soul, and is moving. And I'm so proud of it, and I want everyone to see it. I do. In the theater, go and see it. Especially if you want more movies uh, to be made that are aside from, listen, we love the tentpole movies, you know, the popcorn movies. Those are great. I've been in a bunch of them myself, love them. But we also, if for people who love cinema, if you want that to be a continued thing, go and see The Senior.
Well, thank you so much, Michael, for sharing your passion. And I hope that this next drama works out very well and the senior and all that. And it's really just been such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Thank you. And thanks for putting those behind you in the background. I appreciate it.